Hello, you are all very welcome to the latest edition of the Talk of the League podcast. My name is Matt Smith, and as you can see, Jamie McCoy is not with me today. I have a very special guest with me, and his name is Mark. Mark, how are you, buddy? How are you getting on?
Not too bad, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Busy weekend. Absolutely shattered, and yeah, it's been obviously a big weekend for football, I suppose.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots of stuff to talk about. Obviously, we're going to go over the results. Um, few crazy results over the weekend. A managerial sacking or a mutual termination of contract. In the last 20 minutes, it's just broken that Leeds have got a new manager in Jesse March, former Leipzig manager. So that's good and bad news for Leeds over the last 24 hours. Um, we're going to talk about VAR. I hate talking about VAR in podcasts because you can just literally have and dedicate a whole podcast to VAR, the goods, the bads, everything about it. But in this podcast, when we do touch on it, I just want to talk about the recent incidents, particularly in the Everton game, which is highlighted all weekend. And it came out in Ref Watch that Dermot Gallagher said that it was a penalty, which so it just blows everything wide open. The standard of officiating, everything that goes with it. So we're going to touch on that a little bit later on. There was obviously two big incidents as well in the Carabao Cup final that we can touch on also. We're going to touch on United's form as well after they struggled to a nil all draw at home to Watford. The only positive coming out of that game really is probably that they managed to keep a clean sheet, which they haven't come across many of them this season. Um, and then we're going to look at the upcoming fixtures also as well. So, Mark, what did you make of Manchester United's nil-all draw with Watford at home?
Yeah, listen, I've seen a lot of shows recently that tend to sort of get into the more of the negativity, and listen, it's not been a good season, and from United's perspective, it's not going to be a good season, and I think we just have to kind of grab that now and see it for what it is. What I have seen over a number of weeks now is I do like Ralph. I like him in the media. I think he holds himself very well. I think he's honest with the players. I think he's slowly bringing in the players that we like to bang on about all the time. You know, bringing all the youth through and that sort of thing. And I like the football that we're playing. He cannot help that our strikers or whoever is on the end of a cross or whatever it might be can't hit a barn door at the moment. It's been awfully poor, and but we're defending much better. We are playing far better football, pressing much better. Seem to do it now more often within the football game. You know, it doesn't just seem to sort of stop after sort of 60, 70 minutes. So yes, it's not great. You know, we've had a lot of draws recently, but we've also only had one defeat and a bar in obviously the FA Cup. But I I I have to try and take the positives out of what I see. And as far as I'm concerned, we're not conceding. We should be putting more goals away, and that's something that they must be working extremely hard on going forward. But yeah, it's not ideal. And to be honest with you, I either want to come fourth or out of the Europa League entirely. So it really is about other teams sort of slipping up a little bit now, not so much in our hands, and that's unfortunate. But I think he's had a terribly difficult job. Since obviously taking the reins. I really do. No manager is able to come in at a terrible time of the season. Yeah, it was almost halfway, just before Christmas, where the confidence was ridiculously low. We've clearly, and I think everybody is starting to see this now, got a team of players that I either don't give a shit, can't put in the hard work. Don't do you know what I mean? Too many egos, that sort of thing, and I think that it's a tough job for him. I don't think he's. I really want to see him obviously upstairs as a senior consultant within the club, but I do worry that he's not going to get given enough free reign in that role, and Yeah, listen, I have no idea what's going to happen in the summer. I don't know whether he will stay on for another year. I think that he needs to be given more time, to be honest, and then make that stepping stone. But with that, we struggle with the possibility of not getting Ten Hag. Pochettino, I'm sort of up in the air on both of those, really. I'd like either one of them, wouldn't be too disappointed with either, if I'm brutally honest. But I think that we would be probably more unhappy if Ten Hag goes to City at some point. So it's a difficult one. It's catch-22, and he's had it difficult. So yes, in answer to your question, sorry to waffle on, 0-0 against Watford was poor. And we should have won that. But I think on the whole, our performance has probably been one of the best in a long while, and I'm happy with that. You have to see the positives sometimes.
Yeah, the positives are the clean sheet, obviously, in the performances, and like you say, they're creating chances, just not putting them away. They're the results, though, Mark, that basically sort them out from the boys in terms of top four. You look at Arsenal grabbing the victory from the jaws of defeat there on the weekend as well. Just want to touch quickly on what you were saying about Ralph there, quickly on the managerial hunt. Do you think Ralph should be the man to pick the new manager?
Yes, I think that sometimes, and this is something United haven't done very well in the last 8 years. Okay, granted, regardless of the Glazers, we had Ferguson for 26 years, 27 years, and we aren't used to having a different man come in, a different philosophy, different tactics, and this is our first 8 years where that's happened, and we're not handling that very well at all. And that is obviously purely to do with those that are above Arnold. Well, maybe not so much Arnold, but certainly Ed Woodward up until this moment in time. And yes, I think that in order to be properly ran, that also involves having a nice little stepping stone to the next manager. And I feel that Ralph, with the idea of him going upstairs, has got to have a say in who we go for next.
I actually completely agree with you. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, Pochettino will be a great appointment. Um, I think the Man United fan base are kind of 50-50 split on him, and I think they're probably leaning more towards Ten Hag. But like you say, is he holding out for the Man City job? Is he being bred for that? Who really knows? Let us know in the comments who you think should be the next Manchester United manager. Also, while you're here, make sure you like the stream and give it a share with your friend. Mark, we're just going to quickly go through the rest of the results there before we kick on to anything else. Friday night, Southampton had a comfortable 2-0 win away to Norwich. Then we moved on to Saturday's games. Tottenham absolutely hockeyed Leeds at Ellen Road, which inevitably ended up being the last game in charge for Marco Bielsa. Tottenham are so hot and cold at the moment, going out and beating Man City, then losing the next game, then going out and beating Leeds. There's a lot of that going on in this league at the moment. It is very, very competitive in and around. Like, I think from maybe fourth spot down to maybe eighth or ninth spot, it's very, very competitive. Teams are losing one game, winning two games. And then from 10th spot all the way down until maybe even the relegation zone, there's teams picking up points left, right, and centre. So it's going to be really, really interesting run into the season. Newcastle, massive, massive win away from home against Brentford. They were helped out greatly there by a bit of a strange tackle that ended up getting a straight red through VAR, which we're going to touch on obviously later on in the podcast. But a huge 2-0 win away from home for Newcastle against a relegation rival. So massive for them. Newcastle are doing all the things right at the moment. They've had a fantastic January transfer window. Myself and Jamie have touched on it numerous times over the last couple of weeks. They bought smart. They didn't just go out and splash the cash. The one player they did splash the cash on, Bruno Guimaraes, if I don't know, can't say a second name yet. I'm sure I'll get used to it. They haven't really played him yet, which is surprising. They seem to be sticking with the midfield there, John Joe Shelby. Ryan Fraser has come to the fore for them as well. He's become a really decent player for them as well. Alan St. Maximin has been out. Kieran Trippier is out for probably the rest of the season. He might get him back for the last couple of games with a broken foot. So Newcastle have kicked into form at the right time, and I think they're going to be more than fine in terms of the relegation battle. Crystal Palace won, Burnley won. Another point for Burnley. Burnley are doing the same thing as Newcastle. It wasn't so long ago that Burnley and Newcastle were on 11 points, and now they're into the mid 20 points in the last few weeks. So they're doing what they need to do as well. Probably say it's a disappointing result for Crystal Palace. We usually have a few Crystal Palace fans in the chat. Let us know your thoughts on that game as well. But I'm sure Burnley are delighted with that point. Like we touched on already, Manchester United drew 0-0 with Watford. Big win for Aston Villa away from home at Brighton. Brighton are just one of those teams that they could turn up and beat anybody on their day, and then they can just get hockeyed at home. It's
Yeah,
such a
just to
strange one.
put two pennies in on that, actually, we played Brighton a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
come out 2-0 winners, didn't start the best, didn't know how they were going to set up per se, and they are a dangerous team. They're ran by a good manager, not United or Spurs credentials, I don't believe. I think that his name is thrown around too often. But I think he's a very good manager for a club of that size. Has got the experience behind him and plays some very attractive football. And you don't know what you're going to get. So I think that's a pretty good result for Villa there, really. And they seem to be picking up a bit hot and cold themselves, though, really.
Yeah, do you think Brighton is Graham Potter's level? Or do you think he should be probably looking... Obviously, you have levels there. You have the Champions League teams, the big six, and then you kind of have the likes of... Would you say Graham Potter might be a decent enough fit for someone like Leicester?
Yeah, I think that's probably a better option. I think that you're only going to be given you're only going to be able to get that experience if you're offered it, and it's very difficult to really make that jump to the next level for anybody, and it is sometimes about having exposure in little bits here and there, and then hopefully doing enough when you make that jump. But I do feel that he would be better off at a team like Leicester, and I think that Leicester have got everything that they need put in place to make them a bigger and better team. I'm not saying that he's better than Rodgers. I don't mind Rodgers. Again, not United caliber, and don't like his name being thrown around for us at all. But he's got everything in place. A very good ownership. They're great with their spending. They sell for high money. Little things like that. And I think that if he was to make the jump to someone like Leicester, who have the potential to get into the Champions League, he may do that. And then he's going to get that experience in the Champions League. And then it might be the next step where he can then go to someone perhaps bigger with more Champions League experience. But yeah, I think that would be a great destination for him next.
I wouldn't be surprised. Just putting two and two together, Dan Ashworth, the technical director of Brighton, went to Newcastle there, or he looks like he's going to sign for Newcastle. I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years' time when the Eddie Howe sauce runs out that maybe Graham Potter goes and kind of brings Newcastle onto the next level. Because people are saying Champions League football for Newcastle in 2 or 3 years' time. I'm probably thinking more maybe 5, 6, 7 years' time. Because you have to remember, there's a lot of players in that squad that are probably top tier championship level and bottom of the Premiership level. Yes, they're doing the right thing. They're bringing in decent enough players, but they brought in the likes of Chris Wood. Chris Wood isn't going to get them into the top 10 of the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? So I think I would not be surprised now. Eddie Howe, I think he got a 2.5 year contract, I think. So maybe 2 years with Newcastle, and then maybe that next step is Graham Potter to go with Dan Ashworth. So Dan Ashworth, if he's in charge of appointing a new manager, he may go down the route that he knows with Graham Potter. And I think that might be a decent move. Like you say, Leicester are in and around the Europa League, Champions League spots, and maybe Newcastle will look to get a manager like Graham Potter to get them up there into the top 8 of the Premier League. I think that might be a decent
You know
enough
what?
spin.
Just on that, actually, I think you're absolutely right. That would be a good move for him. I just think that, well, two things really. I think that he is probably, at the moment, with their current credentials, where they're sitting, they've just had new owners, spent a lot of bloody money in January, but they need a little bit of time to build that, and they need a little bit more time to come to fruition. And I think that he's probably above that level at the moment, but certainly in a couple of years' time, that could be an option. But with Newcastle, I know you're saying sort of 5, 6, 7 years, and honestly, take it from me, I don't want Newcastle with all the money to come in and maybe take United's spot. Do you know what I mean? Because that's certainly the way that it will go. But I think it could be sooner than that. And the reason why I say that is because the reason why United, for example, have not been able to bounce back and with no matter how much money we've spent on, have not been able to get enough trophies from that. is because of our poor ownership. I'm not going to go into detail about that and bore everyone with that, but I think that if Newcastle can really do what Man City did, they have Man City. I'm incredibly jealous of for various reasons. Hate them a lot, but they're very well ran club, and they've done that from the off. They've improved the training. They've got the right people, footballing men that are able to bring in the right players. They bring in a manager and they put absolutely everything behind him. Pep Guardiola and Mancini, and all the other plethora of managers that they've had. And I feel that if Newcastle can kind of follow what Man City have done there, then they will get to being a bigger club sooner. I genuinely believe that. But again, it's one of those, we will see what happens.
Yeah. We'll just finish off these results and then we're going to talk about the Man City Everton game because there was obviously a big VAR decision in that, and then we're going to move on to the VAR side of it then as well. Myself and Jamie last week said that it was a big week for Wolves. They took on Arsenal in the Thursday night football as well, and then they took on West Ham in the only Premier League game that was on Sunday. And unfortunately for Wolves, they lost both games. They seemed to be in control of the game against Arsenal, and they ended up conceding the 95th or 96th minute winner to Arsenal, which is massive for Arsenal, I have to say. In terms of Arsenal with the games in hand, they seem to probably be in pole position for that fourth spot. They're picking up the points. They've had a really, really good last few weeks. They had a disappointing January, but in February they picked up the points where they needed to. And with the games in hand, I can see them being the team challenging. They didn't have a game this weekend because I think they were supposed to be playing either Chelsea or Liverpool, I think it was, who were in the Carabao Cup final. But that was a disappointing week for Wolves. Myself and Jamie said that Wolves had two huge games coming up this week, one against Arsenal, one against West Ham. If they could manage to get 6 points in those two games, it would have been huge in terms of not just Champions League top four, but it would have definitely given them a strong hold on the Europa League placings. They've lost both of those games, which is going to be very disappointing for them. So let's touch on the talking point, Mark. As you know, as you might not know, I'm actually a massive Everton fan. So I was absolutely disgusted. I wasn't so much disgusted with the result before we get into this, okay? Because I wasn't really expecting much from this game, to be fair. The fact that it was only 1-0, if you said to me, Everton are going to play well, but they're going to get beaten by a better side 1-0, you'd probably say, fair enough. Man City, probably the best team in Europe. Defending champions, all this kind of stuff. It's a game that Man City need to win after their disappointing result against Spurs the week before. So yeah, all things would have said, yeah, you'll take a 1-0 win. But looking at the game, Everton actually played really, really well. They were very, very good in midfield. They matched Man City in midfield, I felt anyway. And it came down to a mistake from Everton where Phil Foden capitalised. It was one of those where it was a bit of ping pong in the box. And Michael Keane lost balance. He ended up mishitting the ball and it just landed at Foden's feet and he tucked it away. But the main incident happened about a couple of minutes after the Foden goal. Richarlison was played through, took a shot on goal. Edison parried it out. The ball was cleared up into the air with a load of spin on the ball. And Rodri was coming from midfield into the box. And it was one of those where he waited for the ball to bounce and it bounced to the right. And you can just see his arm go up to the right like that. And it hits him in the arm. Now, I was sat with 3 Manchester United fans and a Liverpool fan watching this game. And usually they all take the piss out of me saying, would you give over, believe Man or Everton, that crap and all this kind of stuff. All 4 of them were like, that is a stonewall penalty. That is an absolute stonewall penalty. Now, 5-6 years ago when we didn't have VAR, those type of decisions, you'd say, yeah, the referee didn't see it. This decision went to VAR for a minute and 45 seconds. Graham Kavanagh, Chris Kavanagh, he had 7 or 8 different angles on that, and he had a minute and a half to basically say if that was handball or not, and how he has come to the conclusion. First of all, to say it's not handball, and second of all, to not tell the referee to go over and look at the pitch side monitor and make a decision for himself. It's beyond me. I don't want to be sitting here saying it stinks of corruption and all this kind of stuff, because that's going down another route. You could turn around and say Chris Kavanagh lives 10 minutes away from Man City and he wants Man City to win the league. He doesn't want all this kind of stuff. You can go down that route, but there's no point in going down that route. What I want to talk about here when we go into the VAR conversation is, what is the point of VAR? And surely a decision like that should be given to the officiator on the pitch, the referee on the pitch. If it took a minute and a half for him to turn around and say that is or isn't the penalty, go over to the pitchside monitor and make your own decision. The decision is then on you. Then I think everyone could say, right, he's gone to the referee and he's made a decision on it himself. But for the 38,000 people in that stadium, they don't see any replays of it. There's no communication from the referees. So all they know is that it's not handball. It happened right in front of the Gladys Street end. 10,000 fans could see it was a penalty. I've never seen a reaction like it, where the whole stand just started screaming penalty. Every Everton player within a 20-yard radius could see it. Seamus Coleman, who was 20 yards behind the referee, could see it was a penalty. So my rant is over now. Mark, what was your opinion on the incident itself? And then when you give me your opinion on that incident, then bring us into what's your thoughts on VAR in general.
Yeah, listen, I don't blame you at all for feeling completely aggrieved with what happened at the weekend. I think it was appalling. I saw the incident myself, and I very much thought that it obviously was a penalty as well. It's so difficult. I get that, people are fallible. People do get things wrong. You try to implement something that is going to help with the situation. It's not been a sort of a seamless avenue, is it? And it's listen, I get that it can be difficult at times, but what I've seen and what I'm absolutely disgusted with this season, and I do feel, listen, I'm going to be biased. I'm a United fan, and I do get angry about certain things. I like to think that I can hold my hands up and say, no, we were probably lucky to get away with that, or no, probably wasn't a penalty for us, that sort of thing. But I do feel that we've been very unfortunate ourselves this season. And it's not about those decisions going against us. I just think that the consistency is absolutely abysmal. It's been terrible. The refereeing over the last few years, but this season in particular, has been absolutely terrible. And I think that in instances with VAR, you have to have a process. You have to have a clear and concise process that you follow, okay? If A has happened, B has happened, then you go to C. If it doesn't, then do you know what I mean? And that doesn't happen. There's no consistency there. And how he wasn't sent to the screen, that was, I feel, was very clear and obvious, is absolutely beyond me. And even in the past, where you've had other ones that you think, oh, come on, that's quite easy to rule that out, they still go over to the script. Do you know what I mean? It has to be black and white, and there's too much grey area for me. We understand how it works, we understand the rules, but it's the people that are operating it that are a problem for me, because ultimately the referee, the fourth official, the whoever's on VAR have got the ultimate return on it and the ultimate decision. And I think that they should just go all down one route or all down another route, where they utilise what the tools they have, and they get a second opinion, this sort of thing. And I understand that sometimes that might increase the time taken to do those things, but ultimately it's been brought in to make sure that you don't get away with clear and obvious errors, and I don't think it's being utilised to its full potential to stop stupid stuff like that. We had one, whoever it was that we played a few weeks ago, the handball, but because it was the last pass to the player across to him and they scored, I think it was 1-0, I can't remember, it was a Burnley.
Yeah.
Little things like that. I mean, that listen, we can sound hard done by, but I think it was absolutely. It's like they have grabbed a rule out of thin air just to justify their decision, and it's bollocks. And the fact that they can turn around and say because it was the last man before passing it to his player. So if he'd gone in and shot and scored, it wouldn't have counted. However, because he passed it to his mate, it's okay. Like, how ridiculous can you get? Handball's handball, but that's my example of that, and I just get so frustrated with refereeing decisions. Not VAR in itself, I just think it needs to be handled so much better. And you spoke a moment ago about the referee only being 10 minutes out of Manchester could have a favourability towards City or whatever. But I do think that that's something that can be looked at too. And it's simple. The other week when Spurs were playing City, the fourth official that was holding up the board, it sounds stupid. It was probably taken out of context. You might have seen the video, and
Yeah.
maybe it was just slightly wrong. But the way I saw it, he was, shit, Spurs have scored. And it's just like, how can you have anyone that shows any emotion at all on decisions like that? It's wrong, and I'm sorry. To me, it does screams out that it needs to be really looked at with a fine tooth comb, because I think some
So
of the decisions are terrible.
so what way do you do it then? Because I was actually thinking about this actually just about an hour beforehand. That incident with the fourth official for the Spurs and City game, you could look at it both ways. You could say, like you say, oh my God, like Spurs have scored. Or you could just be a football fan saying, I can't believe it, Spurs have scored. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it could
exactly.
just be like that. It could be like that.
You are absolutely right. And again, I remember seeing this image years ago about how the media take it out of context, and depending on what part of the image you're showing, it can show something completely different. And I get that, and I understand as well that obviously we saw the back of him, and you have to look at it at first glance. And to me, it looked like he was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But it could have been exactly how you said, and maybe they need to have more of a communication with fans when these things happen. Maybe they need to have some sort of high level, I don't know, team of people that are able to come out and say, right, this was our decision, and at least try to explain. And I just think if it's clear to everyone else and fans, then maybe we would be able to accept it a little bit better. But I think that things are a little bit biased. I do. And when these things happen, you have someone on BT Sport or Sky Sports, wherever it is, that will go, this is why. Sometimes you can get on board and say, fair enough, I get this, no problem. But other times, it's I don't know. I just feel that it's not necessarily a good enough answer. How do they do it? I absolutely have no idea. But there's a reason why we've gone from being okay at officiating, getting things right, and I don't believe that's VAR. But for some reason, the last few years, it's slowly got worse and worse and worse. We need to take ourselves out of that and get to a better standpoint again.
So like I said, I was thinking about this beforehand, and why do the Premier League referees, the biggest league in the world, you can't say that's not the biggest league in the world, okay? Why do the referees have to be English? And why can't the Premier League go out and scout referees like a player and go to the Spanish league and say, you're a fantastic referee. Do you fancy coming to referee in the Premier League for 6 months? Something like that. A referee that doesn't have any bias towards any particular team. He's just there to do a job. You see that these referees in the Champions League during the week, in the Europa League games, it wouldn't be a case of them traveling. If it's a case of them coming over for a Saturday 12:30, they come in on the Friday evening flight and they go home on the Saturday afternoon flight. If they're worried about traveling or whatever, I'm sure all the expenses would be paid and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there'd be referees out there in the French and Spanish league who'd love to referee in the Premier League. That would be one way of doing it. And my other option, I don't know if you're a fan of rugby, and maybe this could be a different way of going about it. In the Australian soccer league, they basically have the referees mic'd up exactly the way they have the referees in rugby league mic'd up. So basically, they're in conversation with Stanley Park or the TMO, the touch match official or whatever it is, and they basically whatever every single word they're saying is broadcasted to the live television audience. So that is one way of being held accountable because we can't hear what the VAR referees are saying. That VAR referee for that Everton handball could have been like, don't give him the penalty.
Yeah,
Don't give
yeah.
him the
Don't give
penalty.
it
Do you know
to.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Don't give it to them. Don't give it to them. Whereas if he's in conversation with the referee and we can hear what they're saying in Stanley Park, that is them being held accountable. You wouldn't have to have them coming out and having an interview after the game and all that kind of stuff saying, oh, this is the reason why we gave it. It's there and then. You can have the replay up on the screen, because every Premier League stadium has a big screen or some form of screen. You have the replay up on the screen and
Old
say,
Trafford doesn't.
but maybe there's a reason for that. I think probably you don't want to see any replays, but I think that's one way of going about it. If you could have the referee talking to Stanley Park and saying, okay, this looks like it's hit the middle of his arm, kind of have 2 or 3 more angles there before you make a decision, and it's on the big screen, the fan, maybe even not even have it on the big screen, but if they brought it over to the touchline monitor so he could see it on his own screen and have the conversation to the fans or to the live audience, the TV audience, then I don't think people would be outraged as much, because in rugby they always seem to come to the correct decision, and if they're not 100% sure, if they don't have it clear and obvious, they don't give it.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
I think you've made 2 very good points there, actually, and yeah, you know what, I think that in the direction that football has been going for a number of years now, I think the Premier League and all leagues have probably missed a trick there. I think that's a very, very good business model by getting the best referees in, and I think it would improve the caliber of every other referee around you, because you want to make sure that you're being called up to go to these games. What a wonderful job that would be. Yeah, going to whoever that wants you. And I think that to a certain degree, obviously you've got to allow other people to go as well. But I think that that could be a really big gain for everybody. And I think that you would see a higher standard. You'd bring everyone else up, as I said. I think that's a very, very good idea. Why not? And you know what, as I was saying, I think that with the direction that football's going in from a money perspective and I could see that happening, because I think a lot of fans in all leagues are quite invested in certain referees. And I know that because we have discussions in the background. Oh, who's the referee for this game? Who's the fourth official? Who's on VAR this weekend? So it does generate some sort of friction and motion, whatever, from the fans' perspective too. And I think that people would be on board with that. I think that they'd feel far more settled about the game, knowing that it's probably going to be refereed well. There's not going to be cards. There's not going to be any bias, whatever it might be, and it kind of eradicates that, really. And yeah, with your second point, with rugby, obviously I watch it occasionally, not as much as you, obviously, but I've seen all of that for when they're looking at video replay and all that sort of thing. You hear what they have to say, and the fact that the Australian Football League have done it, it shows that it can be implemented in football. This has been an ongoing conversation for a number of years, and there must be a reason why they haven't implemented it yet. And I can't imagine what that reason would be, but they need to have that. I think it is. What disadvantages do you have from that, apart from getting away with things sometimes? Okay, you have to get someone in, listen to whatever they have to say before their final decision. I think it gives everyone a clear understanding. And thanks, Trevor, for your comment, bro. I've just seen it.
Yeah, Trevor, even a Matt Shelley Smith, I still don't understand. This is like the 4th week in a row he's called me Shelley. I don't know why he's calling me Shelley. Please, Trevor, explain why you're calling me Shelley. And Mark, the best a man can get you, left bigs. So yeah, I think you're only here a wet day, Mark, and you're already getting compliments. I don't know what I'm getting called, but hell or never. But yeah, listen, we won't get too much into the VAR situation. It's I think everybody has a certain opinion on it. Like you say, in terms of getting foreign referees in, it kind of eradicates, oh, he didn't give that because he lives 20 minutes down the road from Old Trafford, or he didn't give that because he wants Newcastle to stay in the Premier League, and that's why he doesn't want Everton to get a point and all this kind of stuff. It's just, but when you have pictures of referees going around in Premier League jerseys, that's when you're kind of saying, right, what do we do here? Like, because how can you have, first of all, how can you put the referee in that position that if he gets something wrong, then he's going to literally be hated for it? The referees are never held accountable. They can make the worst decision known in football, and then they'll just walk off the pitch. If the managers are giving out to them at the end of the game, they'll just dish out yellow cards, and then the referees will just go home. They'll be back out the next week refereeing another game, and the Premier League might issue an apology. They got it wrong.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt a second. I think you're absolutely spot on as well. I've not seen many of these images myself, but it obviously clearly happens. And with social media, the way it is today, and this is not me jumping on the wagon of, oh, fucking hell, social media, this, that, and the other. I just feel that it loses so much credibility. And if you see referees with a particular tops on, you have to really question why they put, you have to take that person out of any of those games. Do you know what I mean? And it just, you do lose credibility. And I think this is the problem with having referees from the same country. These referees are going to be football fans. They are going to have a generic bias to a team, maybe a few teams, depending on who you're refereeing. Yeah. And I think, and you can't help that. You can't blame the referee for doing that. I'm not saying that the Premier League is corrupt whatsoever. I don't. I think it's probably the least corrupt league, genuinely, that there is. And I think it's because the Premier League is that big, they wouldn't be able to get away with it. And I think these things would be leaked far more than what we would know, what we don't know, right? And I can't blame referees sometimes for having a particular bias, is what I'm saying. On to the other point, and I can't blame them for that. So I think your point about maybe having referees that normally referee in Spain come and referee here. We'll give you whatever it might be, but I think you've just got to eradicate the biasness altogether. You do.
So Trevor, just before we move on, I just cannot concentrate. If Mark needs to do a moisturizer ad or something.
I'll give you that tenner later, Trevor.
Right. So listen, we spent way too much time on the VAR chat. Just we'll just finish off on the VAR chat because there was two incidences in the Carabao Cup final. I sent you on a couple of images of what they were, Mark, in the chat yesterday. Obviously the offside goal that Lukaku scored. For me, he's not offside. They have the line on the bottom of Lukaku's shirt. Yeah. So there's this rule now that you can score. There's a red zone and a green zone. A green zone is like the bottom of the shirt sponsor. But if you score, you wouldn't be allowed to score a goal with that. Like if you chew your body at it and chew your arm at it, would it be the goal be given? I'm not too sure. But for me, offside should be any part of your body that you're allowed to score with. And for me, Van Dijk's foot is keeping Lukaku onside. People are saying if VAR wasn't there, he would have been flagged for offside anyway, which he was. The linesman put his flag up. But that was a massive moment in the game. There was 3 disallowed goals in the game, I believe, as well. But another incident in VAR was Naby Keita in the first half. Kind of a ball broke in the midfield. It was kind of a 50-50. Chalobah just gets to the ball before Naby Keita, but it just looks to me like Naby Keita leaves his foot, studs up into Chalobah's leg. Again, referee waves play on. VAR says that, like, I don't understand why VAR didn't say to the referee, we'll leave this one up to you. You go have a little look at it there. It's going to take you 10 seconds. Go over and have a look, see what you think. It could have been a case that it was in the first half. They didn't want to be dishing out anything major, anybody like ruining a cup final by giving an early red card. It doesn't matter. If it's a red card tackle, at least the yellow card has to be dished out, in my opinion. But Liverpool get their hands on the first silverware of the season. Thomas Tuchel, in fairness to him, is doing well at Chelsea. I think now people might correct me with this one. That might only be Klopp's 3rd trophy with Liverpool. I'm not like Premier League, Champions League, and then the League Cup. I think that might be it. Yeah. Liverpool are still doing well. I think they're on for the quadruple, which remains to be seen if they can do it. It'd be amazing if they could. And that's me saying that as an Everton fan. I wouldn't mind really any team doing the quadruple. It's just the fact that you have to listen to the Liverpool fans for the next 40 years talking about it. That's the only thing. But in terms of the game was absolutely fantastic. It was a really, really entertaining 0-0 draw. So what is your opinion as a Manchester United fan on both teams, Chelsea and Liverpool? And how do you think their seasons have gone so far?
Yeah, I think they've done both particularly well. I thought Chelsea at the beginning of the season were always going to be relatively strong. They always have a wonderful transfer window, and I said to some of the guys in the chat the other day, it must be great being a Chelsea fan where you get to have a plethora of wonderful players that come through, and it's about sort of building two teams. But you always knew they were going to be strong. I think the Gegenpress, which obviously Ralph was the main sort of man for that initially. I think it is a very good way of playing, and I think Liverpool and Chelsea both play it brilliantly. But yeah, I think Chelsea have done incredibly well. I think they were very unfortunate. Again, another VAR decision yesterday, and we were just talking about that. I think you have to have a little bit of leeway, and by that I mean, with regards to what you mentioned earlier, with scoring a goal, you wouldn't score a goal with that particular part of your body, and I think that should also coincide with how offside works too. But I think I saw a comment as well, but that it's sort of the changes that have come in. It's so sort of fine now, how they measure it, and I think there needs to be a little bit of leeway. This technology is so precise at times that you could easily utilize it in that shape or form. Van Dijk's leg, you're absolutely right, was keeping him on side, and when it comes to the really fine, narrow issues, it can be ironed out in a particular way, and I think it would just make it, again, it just needs to have a bit more consistency with that. I don't think it's consistent. I think they were very unfortunate. But listen, Liverpool, I can't stand them. I really can't stand them, and I've got a couple of mates who I absolutely love to bits, but they drive me absolutely nuts. And sometimes I can't have conversations about football with them because they are entitled little pricks, and it does my nutting. However, they are an incredibly good team. It was 30 years, a long wait for them from winning a trophy. However, it was bound to happen at some point, and whilst we were all incredibly, and probably yourself too, incredibly unhappy when they won that Premier League, it was going to happen at some stage, and they've got not necessarily the best owners at all, but they've got what I understand is the right sort of analytics side of things from football, where they look at players for the attributes and abilities that they bring, and they bring those players in to fit the mold. And I think that's the way to go. I think United are looking at doing that. But, I have to take everything with a pinch of salt, because I think ultimately the Glazers will have the final say, and I don't think we'll ever be ran like that. But they are ran very well. They've got a great manager in Klopp. I don't like the way that he handles himself sometimes. I think that he comes across as a very sore loser when it doesn't go his way. And I think it's always quite sort of professional, and you sort of look incredible if you come out and hold your hands up more. If you think you might have been wrong, or you think that it was fair, just do that. And then when the times come when it was right, you can then go in and make yourself look better. And I don't think he handles himself well. However, as a manager, I think he's incredibly good, and obviously has learnt from the best. And I hope that Ralph gets enough time to be able to implement that a bit more. But yeah, I mean, they're both destined to do very well this season. I don't think they're going to get the quadruple. Scares the hell out of me. I don't think so at all. Man City are always going to go through a little bit of a dip, and they're still playing great football. I think they'll pick up again and run away with the Premier League.
Yeah, it was very close to Man City. If the Everton penalty had been given, Liverpool would have had the opportunity to go ahead of them as well, especially with the game in hand as well. Obviously, I'd like Man City to win the league from a fan's point of view, because I just can't stand living in Dublin. I think I'm the only Everton fan within a 30-mile radius of myself. So, and then there's Liverpool fans coming out of every house. And a few of my best mates are all Liverpool fans as well, a lot of United fans and stuff like that. And I know United are struggling with the fact that Liverpool are doing really well. But in fairness, all boys aside, you have to just hand it to Liverpool. Over the last 4 or 5 seasons, they've done really, really well. Their recruitment has been fantastic. Harvey Elliott coming through as well. I don't like him as a person. He's grown up a little bit over the last couple of seasons. Suffered a shocking injury, and he's come back and he's playing really, really well to get into that Liverpool starting 11 as well. which is doing really well for them. And the fact that they went out and got Luis Diaz as well makes me sick, because it's exactly what they need in terms of, if they do manage not to offer Sadio Mane a new contract, they have a direct carbon copy replacement for Sadio Mane. So in terms of recruitment, like you said, the way they're run, they're doing everything right. And yeah, it's disgusting, isn't it? But
Incredibly, yeah. As I said, it pains me. It really does. And I'm like every other Man United fan. I can assure you, I cannot watch them. I cannot stand them. But you know, we have to be honest and realistic. They are very well run to a degree. I think their owners are very much milking the cow as well, to be honest. But at least they're getting the recruitment right. And this is what I don't understand about the Glazers. Sorry to go off a bit here, but I think that it would be in the Glazers' interest to recruit right, because I do think that a lot of their recruitment has been knee-jerk when City have been interested in a couple of players, getting in the wrong players. But I think if they were to follow and get the right recruitment in, they'd probably save money. It would increase their revenue because they're competing again. Do you know what I mean? And this is what I can't understand. I don't think actually, whilst they've made a few billion, which is obviously an incredible thing, but they've really, really worked on the commercial side of things. I think they're actually bad businessmen. I honestly believe that. And I think that because if you saw United still doing what they're doing, okay, all the commercial stuff, whatever, you do that, but at the same time recruiting correctly, I think fans are so much more impressed, and it bigs up a player so much more when you find a diamond in the rough. You bring him in. Cristiano Ronaldo was kind of like that as well, okay, from experience. But a diamond in the rough, you bring him in, becomes this absolute worldie, he fits the team perfectly, and then he all of a sudden boosts everything that United need. A player from a commercial side of things. Do you get what I mean? And I just think that because of that, the Glazers, I think they're really missing a trick there as well, to be honest with you.
a comment there from Curlers87. The other big three are run to win titles and trophies, knowing that makes them cash. United are only used to make cash, plain and simple. Basically what you're coming at there. So yes, so we keep going off on a tangent there about United and stuff like that, and I keep saying to Jamie as well that we shouldn't keep going down the United route and the Everton route, but we always seem to come back to it. It's always going to happen. But we did have big news over the weekend, obviously, as well, with Bielsa leaving Leeds United. We have to touch on this. Polarising figure, done massive things with Leeds to get them back in the Premier League after 16 years. All the Leeds fans love him like a father figure. Seeing a lot of Leeds fans crying on social media yesterday, literally crying. They're really, really sad to see him go. He probably feels as though he can't take them any further. And for Leeds' best interests and possibly stay in the league, they need a new face. That new manager bounce. He probably feels as though maybe the players, not the players aren't playing for him anymore, but maybe Leeds need a new identity, need new ideas. Because they're just basically conceding too many goals. It's one thing if you can score more goals than the opposition, but I think on average Leeds are conceding 3.5 goals a game in the last 5 or 6 games. It's not good. And with teams below Leeds picking up points like Burnley, like Newcastle, even Watford and Norwich have picked up 4 points in the last couple of games. Or sorry, Watford have in the last 2 games. Something needs to happen, and something needs to happen now. I believe it's mutual consent. But with the fact that Leeds have already brought in Jesse March, former Leipzig manager, maybe something was in the pipeline already. What's your feelings on Bielsa? And also, are you worried for Leeds in terms of the relegation fight now?
No, listen, I'm not from a United.
I know you're a
perspective
United
again.
fan. I know you're a United fan, but take it out of
would
it.
Listen. It was obviously a great return for someone like Leeds.
Keen
I
in the
do
chat there as
believe
well.
that. I was going to say exactly that earlier, Keen. I assume that is, but I would love to see the fans cry some more tears. To be honest, yeah. But no, they are a team that do have a huge fan base, a huge support. And I think that kind of team does kind of, I'm not discrediting anyone else, but that team is always kind of destined for really the top league or championship. Do you know what I mean? And I think it was obviously a huge triumph to finally get back. But listen, I don't know enough about Marsh. I will be honest, but I do think you're absolutely right. They've got someone in very quickly, and I think they've probably had him earmarked for a few weeks at least, and I think there's always sort of rumblings and whispers going on in the background that we wouldn't ever know about. So that you're absolutely right there. I think. But Bielsa, it's a strange one for me. I do get frustrated with Leeds over the years when they're all saying Leeds play some wonderful football, but they're still hovering quite low down there. That just annoys me. But he's a very experienced manager, and maybe he's just got past it a little bit and not cut out to do it anymore. Who knows? But I think that at times they've played some good football, have been a bit unfortunate, but I think they're, as you say, I mean, in the last few games, 4-0, 6-0, 4-2, 3-0, it's a lot of goals being conceded, and like we've heard many times in the past, you have to have a good defence, not leak goals. And I think this is testament to Wolves, actually. They've conceded so little goals, not really scoring, but they're grinding out results. And if you can work from your defence and move forward, I think scoring goals is probably easier than defending against them half the time. So, listen, it's a shame for Leeds. Whether they'll go down or not, I hope they do. Whether they do, you have to see about 4 or 5 games to the end of the season. But listen, I think they're a relatively well-run club as well, and I think they will be okay.
In terms of taking my bias out of it, I think it's good to have Leeds in the Premier League. Like you say, big club. They'll generate big games like the Leeds against Manchester United. Um, they are a good club to have in the Premier League. If you're looking at who would you rather have in the Premier League, Leeds or West Brom, personally, I'd rather Leeds in the Premier League. Um, but because I'm an Everton fan and I'm absolutely shitting myself that Everton could get relegated, I'd rather Leeds get relegated instead of Everton. So we'll leave it there with that one. Um, Mark, FA Cup this week, midweek games, which is a bit of a strange one. Apparently, this round of games is always midweek. Probably is, probably isn't. I'm not too sure. But Peterborough against Man City, Crystal Palace take on Stoke, Middlesbrough, who did Middlesbrough knock out of the FA Cup?
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. I thought you didn't want to talk about Man United anymore.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Okay, we'll move on swiftly. Luton are at home to Chelsea. Southampton are at home to West Ham. Liverpool take on Norwich. And then on the Thursday night, Everton take on Boreham Wood. So difficult fixture for Everton. I think it's going to be one of those. It's a nice distraction for me as an Everton fan from the Premier League. The worries about it. Hopefully, it will be a good game. It's going to be on telly. It's massive for Bournemouth, which is great. They're going to get a decent gate fee out of it. It's like I think the chairman of Bournemouth was basically saying that their players' wages are covered for the next 18 months or something. He was saying because of this game, so that's all great. But I just want Everton to absolutely batter them and send them home, back down to wherever they're from, on a 6-hour bus journey home. To be honest with you, we won't go too much into the FA Cup because we have upcoming fixtures for the Premier League as well to touch on. But who do you think at this moment in time, with the teams that are left in it, the teams that we just went through there, who do you think are going to be favourites for the FA Cup?
Yeah, I mean, with the teams left in it, obviously you've got City, Spurs, obviously with Conte, and I know they're very hot and cold, as you were saying earlier. I think that he'll want to get his hands on a trophy, whether he's going to be there at the end of the season. I think obviously they're a good shout. All the typical teams, really, that you'd normally talk about. Chelsea, Liverpool, and then another game, obviously Everton. Yeah, I think Everton probably, with the teams that are left, playing Boreham Wood, I think you're absolutely run away with it. I think from your perspective, you need a bit of confidence, I think, at the moment, and that might give you the lift in order to enable that. And yeah, I mean, if you can get a good result there, you narrow it down to the quarterfinals. Is it next?
Yeah, yeah, last 16 now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you leave it with only a few teams left, essentially, and I think if you can be one of those, which looking on paper, you absolutely should be, gives you a bit of confidence, then why not try and push forward? Which I think you've got more than. I know that you've had a poor DOF, who's now been replaced. You obviously had Rafa in, and maybe the players were certainly questionable that are coming in, but I think you've got a decent team that can be built upon. But I think that you should be doing better for sure. And it's just been a bit unfortunate. But yeah, I think any of those teams. I mean, Southampton, West Ham, bit of a tough one. I think West Ham certainly started well this season. A little bit ropier more recently, and either of those two could go through. But I think you'll probably see Norwich lose. I know they're always surprises, but I think when it gets to this stage of the season where you're playing your stronger teams and I think that you'll probably see the big players go through this time.
There's actually one game next Monday in the FA Cup as well. I've just seen it there. Nottingham Forest take on Huddersfield as well, which is a bit of a strange one. I don't know why it's not on this week, to be honest with you. Maybe it has something to do with the two of them being championship teams and the championship fixtures have to be completed this week or something like that. I'm not too sure, but I was wondering. I was like, there's only 7 games in the FA Cup. How does that make sense? Where's the 8th game? There it is next Monday. Nottingham
On the
Forest
same
against
day that you
Huddersfield.
play Spurs.
Yeah, we're going to get into that now. So, 7 Premier League games on the Saturday. We're going to fly through these because we're coming up to the hour mark and we want to get off this stream. Leicester take on Leeds, 12:30 kickoff. Leeds with the new manager bounce. That's going to be an interesting game. Leicester are my biggest disappointment this season in terms of league position. I really thought they'd be basically where Wolves and West Ham are at the moment. They've really let me down this season in terms of a team kicking on. They've done really well in the summer transfer window. They brought in a few decent players as well. I think they've really been hindered with the fact that Vardy's been injured for so long. Their game plan is all based around the way, like, they defend really well, and then they break with the pace of Vardy and Harvey Barnes, and that hasn't been the case this season. Although they have Daka and Iniacho as well, so I don't really know. They don't really have that many excuses. Obviously, with Leeds with the new manager bounce, 12:30 kickoff. It would have been nice for Leeds if that game was at home, but it's going to be an interest. It's going to be a nice way to start the weekend's fixtures. Then we have Aston Villa and Southampton. Another decent little game. Southampton on a good run. Villa got a win there last weekend as well. So that's going to be an interesting game as well. Burnley host Chelsea. Now, I'm telling you now, if Chelsea don't beat Burnley, there's something going on. I think there's a conspiracy theory of Everton to be relegated, because how can Burnley get a 3-0 win away to Brighton and just pick up these points left, right and centre out of nowhere? It's beyond me. And Chelsea really need to start winning games if they want to solidify a third spot for them. So I need Chelsea to start doing me a favour, please and thanks. Newcastle on to
I'd
Brighton.
rather they didn't, but
yeah, I know for yours, but for me, well, I'm being a little bit biased here. Chelsea should be beating Burnley, but Burnley are just at that point of the season now where they're starting to pick up points and they're so robust. They don't really have that many injuries, and you know exactly what Burnley are going to do. But you just can't seem to break it down. They're very robust, and I wouldn't be surprised if Burnley get a draw out of that game either. We'll fly through these, and then we'll touch on a couple of games then as well that we'll go back over. Newcastle host Brighton. Norwich host Brentford. Massive game down the bottom of the table there. Wolves against Crystal Palace. Wolves are going to want to bounce back there as well. Crystal Palace are going to want to try and pick up a few points as well in terms of their league position. Then a nice game in Saturday evening, which is Liverpool against West Ham. We have 2 games then on the Sunday. Watford at home to Arsenal. Again, same rules apply for Arsenal. You better beat Watford, please. And then the big one on the weekend. The big one. Man City against Manchester United at the Etihad. One game on Monday. I'm going to touch on the game on Monday, and then we're going to go back to that game, Mark, okay? There's one Premier League game on Monday. Tottenham against Everton. I don't know how. I think Everton just need to start picking up points. I'm not confident about that. If we aren't confident about winning games, just make sure you don't lose. Get the points on the board. Let's touch on Manchester United against Manchester City. What are your thoughts going into this weekend's game?
Yeah, listen, it's a difficult one for me. I always seem to get a couple of weeks before or a month before and think, oh shit, we've got our biggest one of our biggest rivals coming up. How are we going to be able to play in the way that we need to? Are we going to be fit enough? Are we going to be able to press enough by the time we get to that? But I think in big games like that, form does go out of the window. United haven't picked up many points as they should have over the last few weeks. But I think that I don't know. I'm concerned about it. But we might actually turn up, play brilliantly, play how we did, control the game a little bit more like we did against Watford, and maybe we will be able to hit a barn door. Do you know what I mean? And it's a real tough one. To be honest with you, I would be happy with a draw. I would be delighted with a win. I don't want Liverpool to win the league over Man City. So if we drew, I'd be more happy with that just to not derail them too much. I know that sounds crazy, but I will not be happy if we see Liverpool win it again. Tough game this weekend. But, Man City have sort of been a little bit rocky recently, haven't they? Not been sort of as consistent as they would normally. And I absolutely agree with that comment as well. I think that we are lacking in real finishes at the moment. Ronaldo, it pains me to say, and listen, I lots of conversations about Ronaldo and whether he was the right signing, this, that, and the other. I think he's an absolute wonderful player, probably still one of our best players that we have. But I do really struggle to see how he sometimes fits that press. You've got players like Pogba and Bruno that are dropping back, and you've got a gaping issue in the middle of that. They're trying to pick up the ball from the back, but then you've got a real problem in the middle. The only player that can do that is Sancho. Rashford can't. Lingard can't. Maybe Lingard can a little bit more, doesn't play enough. But Martial is a player that has obviously been poor the last few seasons, but I actually think he would be perfect in that role between Pogba and Ronaldo, and I think we'd see it better there. But anyway, I think playing Bruno in a false nine might have to happen. I think Cavani has missed 60% of our games, and whilst he scored some really great goals, is still a quality player. I think that he is the only man in the world that gets away with not playing when he probably could, if I'm brutally honest, and that does frustrate me a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm very much looking forward to it. And I will be hosting a show myself at the weekend for the first time, and will be nervous as hell based on that result. I really want a positive one, so hopefully we can pull it out the bag.
We'll give you a show, a little plug there if you want there, Mark. Go ahead, let people know where they can find it.
So, I'm doing. I'm going to be doing my first show on Talk of the Devils with Wayne Barton and Keane and a number of others, and I'm going to be doing the first match reaction for them on Sunday right after the game. So,
beautiful stuff. So listen, we have really decent games to look forward to this weekend. Obviously, Leeds first match with the new manager, 12:30. Really good game at the 5:30 there Saturday as well. Obviously, the Manchester Derby on Sunday. Everton and Spurs Monday night football as well. So good football to look forward to on the weekend. Obviously, we have the FA Cup as well during the week this week. It's going to be really interesting, and obviously we're going to have loads to talk about again next Monday. Jamie will be back next Monday. Mark, I want to thank you so much for coming on and filling in Jamie's boots while he gets teeth pulled out of his head. So have you enjoyed yourself?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, honestly, thanks for having me on tonight. It's been good fun. I don't I talk about United very very often, so it's nice to have a little bit of a break and look at other teams and where they're sitting. But yeah, it's been great fun. So thank you very much for having me on.
No problem at all. Do you want to give them a shout out as well as to where they can find you on your socials as well?
Yeah, just on Twitter, as you can see, just underneath. Always do it wrong here. It's just at Mark Biggs. So come and follow me on there. Lots to talk about, obviously, mainly United, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks to everybody in the comments as well. Like and share the stream. And yeah, I've been Matt Smith. He's been Mark Biggs, and that was the Talk of the League podcast.